We've all been there. You're working on a design and then suddenly it hits you like a freight train. There's something off with this design. Something's not quite right. Step number 1 is that initial freight train moment. You realize something is wrong. So the first step is to actually step away from your design. Maybe 1 to 2 hours or even an entire day. This is important though, and the entire process is something high-level designers know about and which is going to open your eyes to a different way of designing. And when we return, it's actually time to look at our designs properly. Now we first want to look at the design from a purely technical aspect. In this first step, we want to remind ourselves of the graphic design principles and see if our design has potentially failed in specific areas of those principles. Now as a quick example, ask yourself if you've broken the rule of using too many fonts on your design. It's a good idea to use possibly 2, maybe 3 fonts in some cases. And it's also a really good idea just to keep to 1 font family on a design quite often. I'm obviously not going to run through every single design principle, but you do get the picture here. For the first step, remind yourself of the basics and how your design respects those basics or not. Now, your design, of course, doesn't have to have or use all of the design principles, and sometimes a design will purposely break these principles, but it is a great idea to remind yourself of the design principles and see how they apply to your design. Now, after you've gone through that checklist, we have possibly a more important question to ask with the next step. What was the goal of your design, and what do you want the audience to feel when they look at your design? Every single design has a purpose, be it to inform the audience or entice a group of people to buy something, or whatever it is, there is always a goal or purpose behind a design. So this design right here, what is the goal of this actual artwork? Well, it could be to show off clothing and make it seem appealing to clinch a sale of that clothing. When a designer knows the goal, design choices are then a lot easier to make, which is why this is a very important question to ask yourself in the process in today's video. Once you've gone ahead and determined that your design does achieve the goal, or when we actually know what we need to change to make the design fulfill its purpose, we want the design to evoke the feeling or feelings in the audience. Now if, say for example, the design you're working on is for an organic beauty product, the feeling you might want to evoke is one of cleanliness and purity. For that design to work, you might want to include more white space than it already does have. And also you might use a very restricted color palette, one that uses pastel type desaturated colors. The typography choices might be minimal, and this is to keep in line with that purity aspect of the feeling. Now if your design ultimately doesn't give the target audience the correct feeling, then that design isn't going to be that effective and you won't be fulfilling your role as a designer properly. But here's another example. With this design here, they've tried to make the viewer feel maybe a bit shocked and a bit scared while being intrigued at the same time. And this is so they hope that they're going to have the urge to watch this media piece about the Chernobyl disaster. The next step is actually quite a tough one for a lot of designers, because it means we're going to start removing parts of our design. We want to remove unnecessary aspects of our design, things that just have no purpose or which will cramp the design and confuse the viewer. For example, take a look at this landing page right here. Now, do you think this appears cluttered in any way? What things would you possibly consider removing from this design? So firstly, we can make the focal point just slightly less dominant so it doesn't cramp the design in general. And this is quite easy to do, and it still remains the dominant focal point, only now we have more space. Now, as much as this illustration in the top left is pretty cool, let's remove that as well. Then below that, this piece of copy text isn't necessary and it doesn't help the design in any way whatsoever. That looks pretty good, but you might have felt that the camera illustration did add something unique to the design. So we can use it, but just in a smarter way, including it in a smaller scale alongside the social media links in the bottom left. Now, it's just a case of knowing what is needed, thinking about scale and white space, and just making the experience one that is smooth and comfortable for the viewer. Of course, this totally depends on your brief and the projects that you're working on. It is possible that your brief calls for a very hectic and chaotic layout, but in general terms, we want to remove things that don't belong. It's wise to save your design as a copy. You don't want to end up with trash canning half of your design and then having instant regret later down the line in the project. So remember, The first thing to do is to notice that feeling you get where you think the design isn't quite right or there's something just wrong with it. Then take a break from your design, just half an hour, maybe 1 hour, or just sleep on it. Then run through the design principles and see if your design respects them, uses them, or in fact has errors in relation to them. Next, remind yourself, what is the goal of your design? What is it trying to achieve? And from that, you should know what you want the audience to feel when they see your design. And then lastly, remove any unnecessary clutter and try and make use of white space on your design. Now, if you run through this process, I can guarantee your designs will be so much more effective because of it. A lot of resources used in today's video were actually sourced directly from Envato Elements, and it's something I personally use on a daily basis just to save time in my workflows. On Envato, there are millions of resources that designers can use on their projects, and lately I've been grabbing a bunch of resources from the 3D section. You can even just click and rotate and choose the kind of point of view you want to download, which is pretty neat. There are tons of downloads though, and for all kinds of different projects and styles, and you can be confident using them on your designs because it's a one license fits all kind of deal when you sign up to Envato. Now you can try it for 7 days totally for free, but if you don't like it after that, you can just move on with your day as usual. And you can find Envato Elements linked in the description box below. But if you want to learn more techniques as a graphic designer, just click a video on screen. But until next time guys, design the future today. Peace.